Hey everybody, welcome back. So we are continuing the conversation around the CIA triad. And if you remember before the break, we basically talked about the CIA triad as a whole, but we also discussed confidentiality in particular. And the analogy that we made was with this box that um, our friend John has. And unfortunately, a criminal broke into his home and was able to open the box. But John was clever enough to only have encrypted information in the box, so the criminal was not able to read any of it. But we said that this doesn't necessarily stop the criminal from impacting the security of this information in other ways, like, for example, impacting its integrity. So integrity is what we're going to talk about next. When we say that security is composed of these three, the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability, I think integrity is probably the one that people are underestimating the most. And we'll see why in a bit. But let's first imagine what it would look like in case our criminal was able to actually change what was written on this piece of paper inside John's box. Let's say that John didn't even understand that he had somebody in his breaking into his home in the middle of the night, and on the next day he basically takes this piece of paper out of the box. He tries to decrypt it, but unfortunately, the information doesn't make any sense because the decrypted information doesn't make any sense because the criminal was able to change what was written on the piece of paper. He was actually able to correct it in a way, or he basically replaced the piece of paper with another one that looked similar to the old one, but was actually a bit different. And now John is actually, let me change that a little bit. So let's say that because on this piece of paper the information was decrypted, it was encrypted. Maybe the criminal had a plan B. Maybe initially he attempted on decrypting the information, or he hoped that it was not encrypted to begin with. But then his plan B was, in case he stumbled upon something that he wasn't able to use, in case it was encrypted as it actually turned out to be, maybe he had an identical copy of the document, only that the ciphertext was different. And because it's ciphertext, obviously John doesn't know it by heart, so he wouldn't make the difference, right? In this case, what's going to happen is when John decrypts the information, he's going to get a different output from the decryption. And maybe this is the output that the criminal wanted him to get. And now John is going to have he's going to have completely different text in front of him without even knowing that it's different, because maybe this was something that John put in this box 20 years ago, and it contained some special instructions. Just let your imagination be your friend in order to come up with a scenario here. But the point is that integrity is so important for this very reason, because it basically, having integrity in place basically means that the information is exactly the same as you left it. It's not changed even by a bit. So if we are back in our corporate scenario, our real life enterprise scenario, what would be the best? What would you need to do in order to have integrity in place. And this is probably going to be a tough one in case you haven't done this already, or in case you don't know the answer by heart. But one of the things you could do, and there are different ways in order to tackle that, right? One of the things you could do is have backups of have a backup of your information, right? If John wanted to make sure that the information in the box is secured, then he would have had a second box, a second identical box hidden somewhere. This way, if he found out that somebody entered his home in the middle of the night, even if though nothing else seems to have changed, he would have resorted back to his other box in order to actually get the information from there, because maybe he would have said, okay, this is not right. Maybe this guy did something. Maybe he changed boxes. Maybe he did something else. But then I'm going to resort back to my other box. Now, in an enterprise scenario, it's not that easy to spot such a difference, because if you have, for example, files stored somewhere, and if these files are super important to you, you're not just gonna understand that something is different about them by just staring at them, right? So what would be the best way in order to even understand that their integrity was impacted? Well, this is where hashing it comes to help. So hashing, and this is, so imagine this box as your company information or your company data, or this super important file that we just talked about. If you're not able to spot the difference, then who knows what was changed with the file, right? And hashing does exactly that. So in order to understand the difference, you're gonna basically say, okay, I'm gonna generate a hash, which is basically done using a mathematical algorithm. So this mathematical algorithm basically produces an output value when you're giving it your file as the input, right? And this output value is going to look something like this on the left. Then this is your, so you're going to do this the moment you create or store your file, your super important file. Now, once you spot something fishy, or basically every now and then you could check whether something happened to this file. And the beautiful thing about hashing is that even if you change this file with just one bit, if you change only one character about this file, the hash output is going to be completely different. So this means that when you perform this mathematical operation again, if you see a different hash value, this means that the file was changed. Even by one character, it's going to be a completely different hash value. So this is how you would know that something happened. This is how you would know that the integrity was impacted. And then, once you find that out, then you're going to resort to your other controls that you put in place. So you're going to restore from backup, ideally, or in parallel, you're also going to start investigating what happened, how this happened. Was it an accident? Was it a cybersecurity attack, and so on and so forth? Now, earlier I said that integrity is very much underestimated, or basically the consequences if you have integrity impacted are very much underestimated. But imagine what would happen if somebody changed a top secret document of the government and gave wrong instructions for maybe, let's say, the deployment of of soldiers or a rocket strike or something like that, it could have catastrophic consequences, right? And imagine it even on a more everyday level. Imagine if somebody was able to, let's say that your husband or wife called you over the phone and you were having a conversation with them, right? Imagine what would happen if somebody was able to interfere in this communication and actually change what you are hearing on your end of on your side of the call, right? Maybe your spouse was telling you, "Hey, could you please go and pick up the kids from school?" And imagine if the Triad actor was changing that to sound like, "Hey, could you please send me $10,000 urgently because I need them right now." I'm just making this up right now, but you get the point, right? This is why integrity is so important, because if you're able to compromise the integrity of something, this pretty much means that you have the liberty to do whatever you want with it. And we're talking about data and information, right? If you're able to compromise the integrity of a piece of information, then it's pretty much up to what you want to do next. And even if even if you're not able to imagine it right on the spot, I mean, what this would look like in terms of your own company or in case of the information that you're working with on a daily basis, think about the examples that we just talked about. Think about what would happen if somebody was able to manipulate and change instructions given to soldiers or vocation given to soldiers, or if somebody was able to manipulate a text that you're sending to somebody. So this is why integrity is so important, and this is why you want to make sure you're preserving that just in the same way that you're preserving confidentiality and availability. Okay, I'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you.